This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
And a very good morning and a very happy Mother's Day to mothers and to dams everywhere. Alone in the studio, and what an awkward feeling it is, given that I've never really had this. My inclination is to look over to this side and to see the smiling face of Seth Merrill, but Seth is really under the weather, and that's a little unusual for him. We frankly can't ever remember Seth as a vet scratch, as it were. But it's Loose on the Lead. It's Sunday morning, Mother's Day, and a little bit of an unusual Sunday because, of course, the action at Belmont Park later this afternoon, the Jockey Club Tour on Fox Sports 1. And we'll talk to Rich Migliori in the second half of the show. Rich, of course, with Greg Wolf and with Andy Serling. And, of course, Simon Bray. And not Alyssa Ali today, but actually Maggie Wolfendale getting a chance to contribute to the Fox Sports 1 show today with Alyssa Ali tied on at Arlington. So we'll talk to Rich. We'll get his Derby impressions, and we'll also get into everything else that's going on the Triple Crown Trail. Lots of Preakness news, and we will talk Preakness specifically with Frank Vespi, the RacingBiz.com. Frank doing a great job on the website that he created that really gives you 100% coverage on the Mid-Atlantic scene. And so we'll check in with Frank, and we'll also talk to him about opening day at Monmouth Park. Yesterday, Monmouth got underway, and it was seemingly a very nice card. I mean, I was mostly interested in the stake. We're actually going to watch that stake because Rebo Bobo, just remarkable. Another stake win. He is just unstoppable. Had a great winter down in Florida for Jason Service and comes back and starts his summer campaign with a win in the decathlon as Monmouth gets their meet underway with Travis Stone, the new voice of Monmouth Park. And, of course, voices of racetracks, a little bit of a story in these recent weeks, whether it was Larry Colmus taking over at Churchill Downs or the news that broke yesterday that has people absolutely reminiscing immediately. The news broke late morning, I suppose it was yesterday, that Tom Durkin, after just a legendary career behind the microphone, up high above racetracks, whether it was Meadowlands when it came to early in his career and the harness calls, whether it was Gulfstream, but ultimately here in New York at the NYRA circuit. And Tom Durkin, it really is the name and the voice that defines race calling these last 3 decades. And his time at NBC, calling the Triple Crown, calling, of course, the Breeders' Cups from the start. Durkin's voice and the definition, really, of storytelling behind the microphone is going to live forever in the annals of racing. And not only has he been the race calling standard that everybody is measured by, but he'll continue to be. And what he brought to and brings to, because he's not leaving until the end of Saratoga, although he will take off after Sunday, the second to last day of the meet, and then he just wants to enjoy Labor Day. But there's going to be so many opportunities to appreciate what Tom Durkin has contributed to the history of the sport behind the microphone. We've got some of the favorite calls. I know it's probably even too early to be doing this, but I can't believe, if you haven't been online, for instance, the outpouring of affection for Durkin and the recognition that Durkin's calls are what so many horse player and fans have grown up with. The first voice they heard defining races was that of Tom Durkin's. And they're going to obviously have somebody else calling the races, but he won't be replaced. It'll be impossible to replace Tom Durkin. And I think everybody knew that ultimately this day was going to come. And already, here months in advance of Durkin's departure, people are already saddened by it. And we're going to talk to Dave Grenig after the first break, see what Grenig's thoughts are, and Miggs too, because of course their careers, Rich's as a jock and Grenig as a racing writer and journalist, they basically also have paralleled Tom Durkin's career in New York. So you'll hear him today calling the races on Fox, if that's what you watch. The races that we pulled out, I don't know if we'll get to all of these today, but as we go to each break, we'll probably play one of these races today. The Hambletonian, the 1989 Hambletonian that resulted in Park Avenue Joe and Probe's Dead Heat, one of the most famous races, not just in Meadowlands history, but in harness history and trotting history. The 88 Distaff and Personal Ensign, one of the all-time great races in history. Rachel Alexandra, of course, in the Woodward. Rags to Riches in the Belmont Stakes in 2007. And my personal favorite, and seemingly a lot of people's favorites, the 2002 Test, you and Carson Hollow. And when you just look here at 5 races, you get a sense of the breadth of Durkin's work and its importance and its basic writing of history in the sport. When you look at these kinds of races, all those Breeders' Cups that defined championships and, the greatest moments really of the last 30 years. So we're going to enjoy a few of those. And we're also going to look at yesterday's action from Belmont and to look forward to Dave Grenig's visit. Yesterday, the win by Tonalist in the Peter Pan. That certainly is going to get a lot of conversation as we get into Preakness Week and beyond, depending, of course, what happens with California Chrome, who continues to prepare for Preakness while at Churchill Downs. And in addition to California Chrome making his way toward Baltimore, Rhea Antonia, the filly, she had a very good breeze today from every vantage point. Big John Nichols, the clocker at Churchill, interchanged some texting with me, said that she looked terrific and galloped out very well. Same could be said as well about the Mark Casse colt, Dynamic Impact, the Illinois Derby winner. He breezed today, postponed his breeze from yesterday when there was a muddy and rather sloppy mess at Churchill. That was really the case in a lot of racetracks across the eastern half of the country. But Dynamic Impact, the Tisnow colt out of the Smart Strike mare, is heading as well toward Preakness, and that field continues to be slightly in flux. General A-Rod was joined in by Starlight and can understand them taking a shot. Ride on Curlin, of course, had seemingly been the only Derby participant that was absolutely certain to head toward Baltimore and the Preakness. California Chrome, though, in the meantime, continues to do very well from every report. During the week on radio, I had a visit with Carl Nafzger. There was a terrific picture taken by Jenny Reese. And Jenny had put up a shot of Nafzger looking over at California Chrome as he came off the track the other day. And I thought, you know what, let's check with Carl Nafzger. And I hope you heard this conversation on Thursday, because Nafzger felt that California Chrome has come out of the Derby just in perfect shape, has not lost weight, has not tucked up, which you sometimes get. And this is really the report we've had on a going basis from virtually everybody that said he was not knocked out at all by Derby and in fact continues to thrive. And that was the word that Nafzger used, that California Chrome was thriving coming out of the Derby. Nafzger figures that he will win the Preakness, and frankly, Nafzger also added that he said this is the kind of horse that can win the Triple Crown, because he seemingly is getting more and more rateable and amenable to jockeys' instructions. options. And as I said this week to Victor Espinoza, Espinoza coincides directly with the 5-race win streak that California Chrome has authored. And you can't deny that. It's obvious. And the way the horse basically responds to Espinoza and Espinoza's light touch on board California Chrome has a lot to do with the way this horse has absolutely arced forward and won these 5 straight, including the Santa Anita and Kentucky Derbies and the San Felipe, as well as those 2 California-bred stakes that came before the Open Company triumphs. So California Chrome, and we'll talk more about the Preakness, as I said, with Frank Vespi at the bottom of the hour. The other horses, too, that if you aren't on top of the participants, the group that is scheduled and seemingly headed for the gate in Baltimore, Bayern for Baffert, of course. I mentioned Dynamic Impact. Social Inclusion may be getting a very big advantage. Social Inclusion is sitting down in Baltimore very patiently and is working along. And there's a lot to be said for that. If you think back 2 years to I'll Have Another, Doug O'Neill did the exact same thing, packed it up right after the Derby, got himself to Baltimore, and gave I'll Have Another 2 good weeks right there at Old Hilltop. Social Inclusion is getting that advantage in terms of working over the track. And if you think back to last year as well, Pimlico was very sandy and deep, and the inside particularly difficult to get over. And there may be a lot of positives to Social Inclusion having an opportunity to train over the track as extensively as he's training. You've also got Ring Weekend, who yesterday was given the green light by Graham Motion. So this one, of course, is West Point Thoroughbreds and St. Elias Stable. Kid Cruz, the very interesting story, of course, behind Linda Rice and the Claim Vina Del Mar Thoroughbreds, took this one off of Black Swan in its debut for $50,000, and then has very quickly, turned into a multiple stake winner. He owns, of course, the Federico Tessio win at Pimlico. Kid Cruz being looked at as a possible upsetter and certainly an exotic candidate come Preakness Day, given the off-the-pace scenario that he offers. And considering the fact that there's so much speed seemingly lining up for the Preakness, Kid Cruz, a horse that people are looking toward. Pablo Del Monte, and here is Wesley Ward. This is the horse, of course, that could have run in the Derby, was an also eligible that came in after Opportunity scratched. But as it turned out, Michael Tabor wouldn't let Wesley Ward run Pablo Del Monte in the Derby. He said, wait for the spot. Don't try to run from the 20 hole in the Derby. And so Pablo Del Monte working along at Keeneland and making his way as well to Pimlico. So there's your field. And, of course, 2 horses that aren't going to be involved in the Preakness that I kind of was surprised. Danza. I don't understand Danza waiting for the Belmont Stakes, and I don't understand Commanding Curve waiting either. Commanding Curve in particular. Last year, when Dallas Stewart had Golden Soul run that closing second behind Orb, that was a race in the Derby that completely collapsed. The pace scenario, meltdown style. And so Golden Soul closes and picks up the second place money. Golden Soul is a different horse from Commanding Curve. Commanding Curve picked up those pieces without a meltdown scenario, without the pace collapsing. That was an honest, hard-trying effort, and I think they're making a mistake. Horses that come from deep off the pace in the Derby generally have never done that well at the Belmont, and that's not the style that ever does well at Belmont. So I think Commanding Curve and Danza both are horses that might have done better to run back here at Baltimore. Danza reminded me very much of Curlin, and a horse with limited experience that runs a very good hit-the-board race in the Derby with some trouble, then ran back 2 weeks later and turned the table on Street Sense and Hard Spun at Baltimore. So I thought Danza and Commanding Curve would have done well to show up in the Preakness. Before we take a break and we have Dave Grenig join us, a couple of quick pieces of news that come out of Derby and come out of the week since. Got to mention a piece of esoterica that you may have seen reported out of Dallas, where AT&T is based. AT&T reports that the network in which they transmit data at Churchill Downs, this is a system that they use at major sporting events like Super Bowl. The data transposed by AT&T was triple that of the Super Bowl and any other major sporting event. And I know this is an oddball piece of information, but there's something very positive about this. And yes, is it people taking pictures to show they were at the Derby and so forth? Well, yeah, absolutely. And 150, 160,000 plus everybody else that's on hand. Yeah, that's more people than are at a Super Bowl. But that's a statistic that I think says something very marketable about the sport. A couple of other positive pieces of news this week. Arizona, Governor Jan Brewer signed that legislation, and even though Arizona residents aren't going to be able to bet online yet, they are going to be able to start phoning in bets. So finally, Arizona gets back with the program, and this is a story, you want to talk about growing the business? Well, how about Georgia? Letting people bet in Georgia, letting people bet in the Carolinas. You do have 13 markets across the country where betting isn't legal. Let's grow the handle that way. Let's get those people able to bet online. Arizona joins with the times. Got to also mention, of course, that there's some transitions going on around the world of racing. Opening day today at Presque Isle, and they will, of course, have Monday and Tuesday racing as well. They've got that interesting 5:30 start that sort of fills a gap between the East and the Western action. You, of course, also this week saw Indiana Downs, now called Indiana Grand Open. And how about new Belterra? Beautiful facility from all the pictures and all the early reports. The facility replacing former River Downs, Belterra, a beautiful casino and apparently what looks to be a very nice racetrack. Won't have any grass racing until next year. They've created a new turf course there, so they'll have to do without turf for now. And then I also got to mention that there were a pair of historic committee additions to the Hall of Fame class for later this summer, and that was Lloyd Hughes, the first jockey to win the Preakness 3 times, and also Clifford from the 1890s, who amassed an amazing record. A couple of old-time additions to the Hall of Fame. Let's take a break, and we will come back with a potential Hall of Fame journalist. Dave Grenig from the Racing Forum will join us here next on Loose on the Lead. Happy Mother's Day. Back after this.
And here they come for the deciding third heat of the 89 Hambletonian, and they're off. Park Avenue Joe and Probe will leave together. Both drivers vying for position now as they move into the first turn. Park Avenue Joe and Probe, and those two, they are in no particular hurry in the early going. And now Ron Waples will take the top with Park Avenue Joe. Park Avenue Joe will lead the way throughout, still racing a bit off the rail as Probe, and now he drops in nicely as Park Avenue Joe will do the drafting, and Probe sits in behind. Both horses are moving comfortably now as they race by the opening quarter-mile mark in 29 4/5 seconds. The wind into their faces now as they begin their journey up the backstretch in this third heat of the 89 Hambo. Park Avenue Joe, and Bill Fay is very content to sit in behind with his first heat winner, Probe. So they continue up the backstretch. Park Avenue Joe, the son of Speedy Somali, still moving comfortably on the lead, and Probe still content to trot in behind. Now they're moving at a very moderate and deliberate pace here. They've gone a half mile in 1:01 3. Both horses looking comfortable now as they enter the final turn of this 64th Hambletonian. Park Avenue Joe is on top, and Probe has been sitting in behind for the entire mile. 3/8 of a mile out. Park Avenue Joe and Probe, and now the tempo is beginning to quicken now as these two come to the top of the lane, and Probe now edges off the rail, and the battle will be joined a quarter of a mile out, and these two trotters now are head-to-head as they turn for home. The three-quarter mark was 1:33 and 4. Park Avenue Joe at the rail, bracing for the challenge. Probe attacks on the outside, and neither of these brave trotters giving way. They are full tilt down the stretch, 1/8 of a mile out. Park Avenue Joe digging in gamely. Probe pokes ahead in front. Probe on the outside. Park Avenue Joe comes roaring back. A relentless drive to the wire. Park Avenue Joe. Probe. Here's the finish. Too close to call. Too close to call. Park Avenue Joe and Probe were a nose apart on the finish line. The time was 2 minutes and 2/5.
Hey race fans, head down to the all-new Clubhouse Racebook. With live horse racing on more than 250 flat-screen TVs, state-of-the-art wagering terminals, and amazing Vegas-style atmosphere. The Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany.
Go Semper kicking clear, and Go Semper is pulling away impressively.
Hysterical Lady Ginger Punch to win it.
And it's Wilco in front, and he's going to pull off a huge upset here.
But it's Round Pond going on to take the distaff.
Awesome again. Star of 10 Grade 1 winners, 4 Breeders' Cup champions, and 4 multimillionaires, standing at Adena Springs.
It's more than just a sports bar. It's Stadium Cafe. Located at 389 Broadway in Saratoga, it's the place to be for great times and great food. Their menu features everything from gourmet entrees to your favorite wraps and sandwiches. Or maybe you just want to grab a beer and catch the game. So what can be better than that? How about 2 Stadium Cafes? There's also the Westside Stadium, right up the road at 112 Congress Street. Same great menu, same great service. Whether you're hanging at the bar or just relaxing outside on their spacious covered patio, you'll always leave knowing you'll be back again.
We love, above all, the staff. We love Dave Harmon, and the food is fantastic.
Not 1, but 2. 112 Congress Street, 389 Broadway. Guaranteed to be a home run.
Missed one of our TV shows? No worries. Now you can catch all your favorite programs online. Simply log on to CapitalOTV.com and click on the YouTube link at the bottom of the homepage. And look for our new podcast coming soon. CapitalOTV.com. Log on today.
We're back at Loose on the Lead on this Sunday morning. Happy Mother's Day. Dave Grenig, to your wife, and of course, Mother's Day at the racetrack today with the Man of War and a very nice card, and Fox Sports on hand to cover it.
Yeah, it'll be a really nice card. You know, if you get there early, you'll get to see a $90,000 paid public workout by Palace Malice in the Westchester. And then you'll get to see a decent, pretty nice race that in its own right, the license fee on the grass. Nice little sprint right there that's going to stay on the grass. I think that's a good one. And then the Ruffian has a couple name horses in Grace Hall and 50 Shades of Hay, but I think you still got to beat My Wandy's Girl. And then a pretty intriguing turf race as we look at the next major player in the marathon turf division.
Well, and the Man of War in particular has got a nice group of horses, well matched, and really I don't think anybody would be a surprise in there. The first thing, though, we've got to talk about, Dave, that clearly took the industry, I wouldn't say by surprise per se, but absolutely created an outpouring of affection and recollections galore with the news that Tom Durkin would retire August 31st. And I'm sure you've seen on the internet the linking of YouTube videos and everybody talking about their favorite moments and their favorite Durkin calls. This really, I think, you get a real feel that the public, the race fan and horse player public and the industry stakeholders, that Durkin really means something to everybody at a variety of levels.
Yeah, well, over the last quarter of generation, the quarter of century of this generation, really, most every major racing moment he called. I mean, he was the voice of the Breeders' Cup for almost ever. So, 2005, he was the Triple Crown. during that span when we had all those, most of those attempts for the Triple Crown, he was the caller. Obviously, he was the caller. He called the Belmont even when he wasn't on national TV. He called those races, whether you heard him on the track or whether you heard him on TV. And this was most, and then the Saratoga. So I'd say, aside from a few Breeders' Cups where when Trevor was calling Zenyatta and whatnot, I think most of the major moments in racing, at least that I can think of off the top of my head, he called.
And the fact that there is all of these layers of his great career that are going to define him, and frankly, are going to be held up as the nonpareil of race calling. I mean, everybody that comes along calling races, his contemporaries and now those that follow, everybody is held up to his standard.
And that's probably because most of the people copied him in some way or another, whether it was his anticipation of what was going to happen in a race, or whether it was just the vernacular, the names, and how to make sure they got it right, and to maybe add a little fun to it. And I think if you polled all the race callers now and had a conference call with all of them, I'd say 90% probably tried to take something from Durkin, whether they would, regardless of how strong it was or not. But I think they would have taken something from Tom.
One of the things that is remarkable, we think about the Triple Crown races, we can think about the Breeders' Cup races, but when it comes to Belmont specific and the Belmont Stakes, and as you mentioned, because of the Triple Crown tries that came in seeming rapid succession, there are a few that just have this heartbreak and this anguish, none more, I suppose, than the Smarty Jones call. At the same time, you brought up when I asked you, your reaction was instantaneous about Real Quiet.
Yeah, I mean, just when you go back to the tries, the Triple Crown tries, the closest anybody ever came to winning the thing was Real Quiet, and he nailed it every step of the way. He made, he picked, obviously he had him when he made the lead. He's 4 lengths in front of the 8th pole, 20 years in the waiting, 1 furlong to go. I mean, who didn't think at the 8th pole Real Quiet was winning the Belmont Stakes? And then he picked up Victory Gallop at the 16th pole. Ken Stormer and pouring for 1 more furlong. They hit the wire together, and it's, oh my God, it's too close to call. History in the waiting. The picture's worth 1,000 words. This one's worth $5 million. He didn't script that. He couldn't have possibly scripted that. You could hear him laughing as he says it, like in the back of his mind. Says, "I'm really happy I came up with that because it's accurate. It was a $5 million bonus. It was history. It was you're going to have to wait for the photo. Then you were going to maybe have to wait for an objection, which obviously you didn't know. He nailed it. He nailed it. And a few years ago, whoever the last Triple Crown try was, I guess it was leading up to I'll Have Another. I sat with him in one of his favorite watering holes. We went through all the Triple Crown trials. He called that the best thoroughbred race he ever saw. And frankly, I think it was because of what was on the line there. And I really think his call at every step rose to the occasion. Whereas some of the other races that we talked about off the air, I still think the race superseded the call. Here, I think the call was on par with the race.
And one of the things, as you just noted, I think that made Durkin unique at the time when his personality and when his presence became apparent across TVs and racetracks, whether it was Breeders' Cup, Triple Crown, or in New York, was in fact that organic, natural delivery that was telling a story. And at the time, that was fairly new and fairly fresh, as opposed to some of the perfunctory styles that a lot of good race callers that came before Durkin. I mean, Chick Anderson and let's think about Capicella and so forth. I mean, they're all terrific, but it was much more of a straight-laced reportage of the positions and the flow of the race, as opposed to some of the editorialization that Durkin started to weave into the calls, and they became stories as opposed to just technical iterations.
You're right, and I think some of that has to do from his background in theater. He study theater in school, and I think he was, these were dramatic. There were a lot of events he called were dramatic on their own right, and then he made sort of the melancholy become dramatic as well. And I think people liked that. It added a little flair to it. It wasn't just three's in front by two, two's in front by one. And, it wasn't just the perfunctory, here's where they are at the race, here's who's in front, coming to the wire, boom. And nothing, and to quote Jerry Seinfeld, there's anything wrong with that. There was nothing wrong with that type of call. But Tom added a little bit of a flair to it, and I think people picked up on that and they enjoyed it. And, the 25 non-winners of Two Life Claimer became an event just like the Belmont.
Absolutely. Well, that also includes races along the way in advance of some of the big days, races like the Peter Pan. We're going to watch right here, Dave, as Tonalist is going to win the feature and get ready 4 weeks hence to participate in the Belmont Stakes. And they're showing the race off the turn, but really the important part of this race came early on. After a little bit of a stuttered start, Tonalist gets engaged and surprisingly takes command early. Give us your take on yesterday's performance.
Yeah, I'd say, and I did tell Clement this afterwards. I said, about half a mile into the race, I was saying, you should have left Bravo on the horse, because I was like, what is he doing? Why are we making the lead after a quarter mile in 22 and 4, or whatever the first 23 and 4? And then he runs like a 23 flat second quarter. I'm thinking, what are we doing here? Rosario said that the horse kind of lost his footing at the start, kind of directed him toward the inside to get him in the clear, and he asked him a little bit to run. And when he asked him to run, Tonal said, okay, I'm going to run. And he ran that field off their feet, and he was very solid. It was a solid time. He looked very good doing it. But I just want to caution, go back a year. Did Freedom Child look any less when he won by 13 lengths in the slot? And everybody loved him going to the Belmont. He got beat 58 lengths in the Belmont Stakes. So it was a terrific performance from a horse that a lot of people liked before, they thought that he had a chance to be a Derby horse. He got sick and had some foot issues before that forced him to miss the Wood. So obviously he was not able to make the Derby. And now he's coming back, and he looks like a very nice horse. He's a gorgeous looking animal, and he won very nicely yesterday. But I just I try to caution people on Twitter, say, look, it's been 22 years since a horse AP Indy did the double, meaning winning both races, not coming out of the race. And I think this horse has a bright future in a year where it looks like to be a very ordinary crop. But we got 3 weeks to go.
Well, and of course, the group of horses that are lying in wait for a potential upset, if indeed California Chrome gets down to Baltimore next week and wins at Old Hilltop, we would then end up, Dave, with a Belmont Stakes Day that will be truly like none other. We already have that Ogden Phipps that is developing into a remarkable scenario with Close Hatches, Princess Asilmar, Beholder, and even possibly Midnight Lucky, the Met Mile, and then everything else that's going to go with it. An acorn that is starting to grow already into a mighty oak. Are you already looking forward to Belmont Stakes Day?
It's it's going to be a tremendous day. I still think it hinges on whether this horse is going for the Triple Crown or not, because I do think that those other races, well, as good as they are, could overshadow the Belmont if California Chrome loses and he goes back to California and sits the Belmont out, which I would anticipate that he would if he were to lose. If Untappable shows up for the Acorn, plus 3 that you mentioned in the 5th, and that mile is always a great race on its own right. It's going to be a terrific part, no question.
Well, and Dave, I also should mention from yesterday's action, I thought Mr. Jenny's comeback performance was outstanding in that allowance. Obviously, bigger and better things await for him. Clement stable with a very big day. And how about Salutos Amigos absolutely drowning that allowance sprint field in his, third start under Davey Jacobson?
Yeah, it's 3 for 3 for Jacobson. I know that when Eric Keogh had him, he was very high on the horse, and not sure what David's been able to get out of him that Eric couldn't. But he's probably stakes down, and some maybe he's a True North type of horse. Give him a shot there. I'm not sure, but he's certainly done tremendous things for David since David purchased him privately, and we'll see what lies ahead. Sprint division's kind of an open affair, I think. I don't know if there's a stellar sprinter out there right now this year. So we'll see if he can maneuver his way into that rank.
Well, Dave, as always, appreciate it. Again, for your wife, happy Mother's Day, and we will look forward to seeing you we're going to see you in Baltimore?
I'll be there.
Outstanding. Dave Grenig, everybody. DRF Grenig on Twitter. And as we go out, let's watch the 1988 Breeders' Cup Distaff, an unbelievable race and an outstanding Tom Durkin call.
In the field in winning colors, who seeks to stop her streak at 12, and they're up in the distaff. Goodbye Halo broke well in winning colors now. She's going to run right on the lead early. Well, on the move has come out running in third, and she's taken in hand. Integra now has been gathered back in fourth position as they head for the first turn. Personal Ensign was away in good order now. She'll be floated a bit wide going into the turn by Sham Say. Epitome is saving ground all the way on the inside. And then Classic Crown is one horse beaten, and that is Hail the Cab as they round the first turn. And the Derby winner is Loose on the lead. It's winning colors now, and she's opened up by 4.5 lengths. Goodbye Halo is second, and Vasquez asking Sham Say for run now third toward the inside. Willa on the move is racing in fourth. Integra is fifth on the outside. Personal Ensign, the undefeated filly, is now 9 lengths off the lead as they continue up the backstretch. It's still winning colors, Loose on the lead by 2.5. Sham Say is running second. On the outside, Goodbye Halo in striking position is third. Willa on the move is asked for more, run fourth. Personal Ensign is still 8 lengths out of it. There's a half mile to run, and winning colors doing what she did in the Derby. She's still free running on the lead. 3 furlongs to run, and she leads now by 3. Goodbye Halo beginning to pick it up in second now. Sham Say is third toward the rail. Personal Ensign is putting her run in on the inside now, and she takes to the outside. 5 lengths off the lead of winning colors, who turns for home here at Churchill Downs. Stevens going to a vigorous left-handed whip, holding on by 2. Goodbye Halo is charging hard. Here comes Personal Ensign, unleashing a furious run on the outside, but it is still winning colors. Goodbye Halo. Personal Ensign is 1/16 of a mile from the wire. Winning colors is there. Personal Ensign, a dramatic finish, and here is the wire, and it is Personal Ensign there with winning colors in a photo. Very close at the 16th pole. It looked like Personal Ensign was facing her first defeat, but in those final 110 courageous yards, she certainly proved herself a champion this afternoon.
The future of online betting is here, and only at the all-new CapitalOTBBet.com. CapitalOTBBet.com delivers a state-of-the-art wagering experience found nowhere else in horse racing. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
I didn't want to get just any degree after high school.
Horse racing has always been my passion.
I was already a lawyer.
When I was young, my dad took me to the races. The sound of the crowd. I still remember.
I'm 40, and I don't want to stay in a career I don't love.
I want to follow my passion.
Follow your passion at the University of Arizona Racetrack Industry Program.
Fascinated by the world of horse racing? Interested in honing your handicapping skills? Class is in session. Night school, Monday nights. Easy to access online. It's free, interactive, and informative for the casual and serious race fan. Horse Player Now Buzz. Live horses to watch emailed to you daily. Our eyes, your prize. Night School in the Buzz. Visit horseplayernow.com for details.
Saturday, May 17th is Preakness Day at Pimlico, and the best place to catch all the action is OTB TV and CapitalOTBBet.com. It's one of horse racing's most exciting days, with a full card of stakes racing totaling more than $2.5 million, all leading up to the second jewel in the Triple Crown, the Preakness. To be part of the action, head down to the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany. Stop in at one of our Easy Bet or branch locations, or log on to CapitalOTBBet.com.
I'm Jeff Carl. Join me Saturdays and Sundays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the weekend in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekends at 9, only here on the OTB TV network.
We are back on Loose on the Lead, alone in the studio today, and a get well wish heading out for Seth Merrow. Hopefully Seth is back next week, because I'm going to be in Baltimore. And Frank Vespi is going to be in Baltimore too, theracingviz.com. Happy to have Frank join us. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. It's good to be with you, and looking forward to seeing you in Baltimore next week.
Without fail, one of our favorite stops anytime during the year. We'll talk about the prospective Preakness Field and everything that's going to go into the closing of the Pimlico meet, which by all accounts seemingly going beautifully, but Black-Eyed Susan Day and Preakness Day shaping up very well. Before that, let's do a roundup of some Mid-Atlantic news. And of course, yesterday, opening day at Monmouth Park, and one of my favorite spots as well, a beautiful ocean port. Fast times on the Jersey Shore, and whenever Rebo Bobo runs, there's fast times.
How good is this guy?
It's unbelievable.
He's won, what's it now? It's like 12 out of 14 or something.
Something like that.
And, you know, I think the only race he lost last year was to Ben's Cat, who is another sort of like him, you know, who just runs great races every single time. I mean, he's just a beast. They go, you know, in this race at Monmouth in the decathlon, they go 21 for the opening quarter, and he draws off like he was just jogging. I mean, he has turned into some kind of horse in the last couple of years.
Well, there is no doubt, and I'm just looking down at the numbers. You know, he did, even for 6 furlongs, he drew nicely outside and gave him a perfect opportunity to do what he does best, which is, you know, stalk the speed, and he sat second right away. Obviously, Paco Lopez just gets along with him so well and comes back out of that Sir Shackleton misstep at 6.5 furlongs, wins the decathlon to open the meet at Monmouth. And, of course, it's an important meet at Monmouth as they continue to kind of craft, Frank, a new racetrack with the horsemen and with some of these concepts that they have as underpinnings, trying to make it a destination and trying to make it a family fun affair down at Oceanport. So we certainly wish Dennis Drazen and everybody involved down at Monmouth success, one of our favorite places. Going to turn our attention to Virginia for a moment, because you've been on top of the story down there, where Frank Petramalo and Debbie Easter continue to work, the horsemen and the breeders, trying to craft something with the Jacobs family at Colonial. Bring us up to speed, because they're supposed to start like next week.
Yeah, time is a wasting. And, you know, as you know, I mean, the brief story is that the horsemen and the breeders and the racetrack could not agree on what they wanted their meet to look like for 2014. For the last year, they did a 5-week meet, racing 5 days a week, and the horsemen didn't like that, and they felt as if they gave that as sort of an interim, temporary thing, but they didn't want to do it again. So when the racetrack this year proposed just a 6-day meet, the horsemen said, "This is nuts." And back in December, the Racing Commission had said, just do another 5-week, 5 days a week meet, and the horsemen balked at that point. Months of negotiation go by with no real progress. In fact, they might have gone backwards. And so at the last commission meeting, the commission said, "All right, you guys clearly can't figure this out, so we're going to order you to do a 5-week, 5 days a week meet." And at this point, the horsemen are on board with that. And my understanding is the racetrack is saying, "Okay, we'll do that, but," and the big but here is that for the last couple of months, there has been no thoroughbred signal. So some of the OTPs that Colonial owns have had to close. A number of the others have taken a real financial hit. And Colonial says they've lost about $1.5 million as a result of that, and they want to get made whole. And so what they're doing now, my understanding is trying to figure out, you know, what can be done to sort of make them whole. And my take on this is there is a way to solve this problem, and I think the way to solve this problem is this. The Racing Commission is convening what they're calling their sort of blue ribbon committee to sort of craft what racing needs to look like in the years to come in Virginia. And to me, that's the committee that should deal with making Colonial whole. You know, this $1.5 million is not something you can solve in 5 weeks in my mind, but it's something you can easily solve if you roll it into this larger discussion.
Well, let's roll from Virginia, where they're supposed to commence when Pimlico ends. Let's talk about this pinnacle of the Pimlico season. And, of course, that means Preakness, Black-Eyed Susan Day, Pimlico Special, and everything else. And we certainly seem to be shaping up to a terrific Preakness. Here is California Chrome, Frank, that is going to get in Monday, making Mike Gaffigan very happy. Gaffigan didn't want them to wait until Wednesday, so the plane is repaired and on its way, and it'll bring almost everybody into town. Give us your early take as we survey the Preakness field.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun, and there are going to be 4 horses on that plane coming up from Louisville, getting in Monday afternoon to Baltimore. Social Inclusion is already on the grounds and looks good, and he looks to have really settled in nicely. I went by to see him the other day, and he had just managed to rouse himself from his nap and was getting brushed down. So he's looking good. So that's fun to have him on the grounds. Also, Kid Cruz is scheduled to come down from New York on Monday. So we're going to have the lion's share of the field is going to be in town on Monday, which, as you say, is going to make Mike Gaffigan very, very happy. And it's fun. I think this, right after the Derby, I think everybody kind of thought, oh boy, this who's going to come, and is it going to be anybody worth seeing? And now it's actually shaping up as a really interesting race. I think it's going to be a different kind of challenge for California Chrome this time than he saw in Louisville, and I think it'll be fun to see how he adapts to it.
Well, and indeed, the speed that we look to in the Derby, the prospects, everybody was looking toward maybe another meltdown scenario like we had the previous year when Orb came storming home, but it really didn't materialize. Now, one thing California Chrome certainly did, Frank, was establish that he can sit comfortably and wait for a cue from Victor Espinoza. He may have to sit a little bit more comfortably, a little bit longer on Saturday, given the preponderance of speed involved here, including Pablo Del Monte, Social Inclusion, Bayern, to some extent General A-Rod. So we certainly feel like we've got as many of the speed horses or more than we did in the Derby, given that this field is about half the size.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point. And I mean, I think the thing that I feel like with California Chrome, and I don't want to, I don't want to go over the top here, but he reminds me a little bit of Smarty Jones in that, Smarty had that kind of tactical speed where he could work out a good trip because he could get himself into the right position. And that's sort of what Chrome has been able to do so far. And, so I think you're right. I think we might see a little bit different pace scenario on Saturday, and he's going to have to show that ability to wait and be patient. But I thought he really did that nicely and then kicked on home in the Derby. And so he's going to be a handful here, but at the same time, you got to think there's going to be an opportunity for some of the horses that want to run out of the back to make some noise.
Give us a quick glance ahead at some of the other names that we can expect between the heavy stakes action Friday and Saturday, Black-Eyed Susan, and, of course, races like the Miss Preakness and the Dixie. I see a lot of names trickling in, making the trip toward Baltimore, as well as some of the locals, and a personal favorite, of course, as Tony Black and Mikey Arrow are going to show back up with the winner of the Prix Minetta, that being Winning Image, the 7-year-old mare will try the ski pat.
And I think all of us in the media are rooting for them because they're the most entertaining story. And she's such a nice filly, and Tony Black is, a laugh riot. And so I think it'll be fun to see them back. And, that horse she's good. And if they don't give her a really hard time on the front end, it's awfully hard to reel back in at the end. I think if you look at the other race, I mean, the Pimlico Special is coming up terrific, and I'm hearing Prayer for Relief, I'm hearing Moreno, I'm hearing Carve, who just came in third in the Oaklawn, I'm hearing Steel Case, who was second in the Ben Ali, I think Valid, who was second in the Hooper, Bourbon Courage. I mean, it's looking like some pretty good horses are coming in that race, and I think that race is going to be a lot of fun. I don't know, they're still working the field for the Dixie. I think we're going to see a lot of horses out of the out of the Henry S. Clark, which is Pimlico's last prep for the Dixie. But I think we know we're going to also see Hay Leroy, who won the Appleton, and so that should be fun to see him. It looks like Awesome Baby is the headliner for the Black Eyed Susan, is what we're hearing at this point. So it should be interesting to see how that shapes up. I mean, one of the things that Pimlico has done this year is there's this $100,000 trainer bonus, and the trainers get points for running in various stakes races. And so I think what they're hoping, and I think to some extent it's happening, is that's going to get Mike Maker or Bob Baffert to bring in a whole battalion of horses to take shots at all these races.
Well, as always, Frank, you're on top of the Mid-Atlantic region. Those of you that have not visited his terrific website, theracingbiz.com, you can also follow Frank on Twitter. Frank, looking forward to seeing you down there Friday.
Same here, Steve. We'll look forward to it.
Frank Vespi, everybody. And, of course, Frank visits with me on the radio. Seth has him as well on TV. We're going to take not a break, but we are going to watch here between Frank's visit and Rich Migliori's visit. Let's watch another terrific race made even better by the call of Tom Durkin. This is you and Carson Hollow in the 2002 test.
Gate ready for the start of the test. And they're off. Preferred Option breaks alertly. And here comes Carson Hollow right from the beginning on the inside, and she's in front. It's Carson Hollow, the leader. Bold World, though, is right there with her on the outside, running along in second. Short Note third. Spring Meadow is fourth. Then Preferred Option. You is at the back of the pack. She's 5 lengths from undefeated Carson Hollow. The trailer is Proper Gamble. Carson Hollow takes the field through a quarter in 21-3. Sensational. Carson Hollow, a torrid pace here as the field moves into the far turn, but not far behind her is Bold World. She's just a length behind. Spring Meadows in between horses. Short Note down toward the inside. Preferred Option, Proper Gamble, and the favorite You is last. The favorite You is last with 3 furlongs to go. The half in 44 1/5 seconds. They're moving toward the quarter pole. It's still Carson Hollow. Carson Hollow is the leader. Here comes Spring Meadow. Spring Meadow with a burst of energy trying to come on through in between horses. Oh, and she got shut up. You trying to squeeze through on the inside. Oh, a daring move there by Jerry Bailey. And on the far outside, Proper Gamble. Bold World in with a fighting chance. 1 furlong to go. And here comes You on the inside of Carson Hollow. And these two are nip and tuck. There's absolutely nothing between them. You's in so tight. Carson Hollow is unwavering. These two in a dramatic finish. It's a photo finish that doesn't deserve a loser. You and Carson Hollow in an absolutely thrilling renewal of the test stakes. Spring Meadow was third. The final time was 1 minute, 22 seconds and 4/5, and this was absolutely sensational. You was in so very tight beneath Jerry Bailey. Carson Hollow was unwavering through the stretch. What a horse race.
We're back on Loose on the Lead, one of the great races in Tom Durkin's just incredible resume, the index of brilliant calls in his career, the career that will end August 31st at Saratoga. And, of course, that was at Saratoga, the test in 2002. Carson Hollow and You. Who's better than You? Rich Migliori, good morning.
Good morning and happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. It's a beautiful day here at Belmont.
It absolutely is, and of course, you will be featured later this afternoon. Fox Sports 1, the Jockey Club Tour, makes its only stop, or at least right now, its only scheduled stop at Belmont. Nothing says that later in the fall there might not be something extra special that you guys might swing into action to feature, but looking forward to later this afternoon when the Man of War will be highlighted along with the Ruffian.
Oh, absolutely, and I hope that we have another stop here later on this year, but we have a couple in Saratoga, which is always great, and I think we had a terrific card today. I mean, of course, we're going to bring you the Westchester on tape, but going to be interesting to see Palace Malice, the mile, I guess there's a prep for the Metropolitan Mile, and just a terrific day, and I'm glad the weather cooperated.
Rich, I'm going to certainly ask you about Tom Durkin. We'll talk about him in a moment, but very quickly, had Dave Grenig on earlier, and we talked about yesterday's Peter Pan victory by Tonalist. Dave probably wisely saying, yes, it was very impressive, but let's take a little bit of a caution given the track condition and take it from there. What was your impressions of the performance of Tonalist yesterday?
Well, I would agree with Dave's assessment about that because of the track. You could tell on the backside he was relishing the go, and he was climbing a little bit from the kickback early. Joel kind of, asked him to run enough so he would kind of level off. And then I guess they were off the fence enough. The dirt stopped hitting him, and then he kind of took off with him. And you could see his stride was so impeccable that he really relished the going. I will say this, though. He's a horse that I've liked, and I liked what I saw yesterday. The few months, his last start to now, he grew up considerably. He filled out more. He lost a little bit of that Pleasant Colony look to him. He still kind of got the scope and length and size, but now he's kind of broadened out as well to go along with that the height. And I really was impressed with him physically in the paddock and on the racetrack. So as much as I would agree with Dave's assessment about the racetrack and take it with a grain of salt, I just loved what I saw from him physically.
Well, we just watched it again, striding out, and of course he may be laying in wait for California Chrome if indeed the potential dual classic winner arrives at Belmont with a Triple Crown on the line, which would only further enhance what is already scheduled and arcing into an amazing race day. Rich, before we talk about Durkin, one more question. Let's get your final takes on Derby. We talked on the radio on Monday, but I'm curious if you've had more watchings and had any further thoughts about what we saw 8 days ago in Kentucky.
Well, I still was very impressed with his race visually. I just thought his turn of foot turning for home was so eye-catching. Now, that being said, I've been hearing a lot of criticisms. Well, it wasn't fast. And then the other one is, well, he had a perfect trip. Well, first of all, he creates his own perfect trip. He's a horse that has enough speed that he can put himself where the rider wants to be, and then he waits for the rider's cues. What do you want to do next? And it's not always the most talented horse. It's the horse that has that mental capacity to do that. And obviously, he's the package in that respect. He's the one chink in his armor. Everybody worries about him leaving the gate. When he leaves the gate on time, he creates his own perfect trip. And then with that acceleration, that's kind of what separates the men from the boys. And a horse has the ability to give you an eighth of a mile like he did turning for home in the Derby. And then as far as the slow time or slow buyer figure, what have you, he's capable of running faster.
Right.
So the fact that he was able to win the Derby without his A effort, let's say, I think bodes well going forward. I go back to Seattle Slew. Everybody said the same thing about him. And I'm not comparing California Chrome to Seattle Slew, and I don't want anybody to get up in arms here. It was slow, it was this, it was that. You know what? I'd rather have them be able to go forward off a race than know that they were all in.
I don't disagree at all, and we'll see how it bodes. From every indication, he has not had even an ounce of weight off after the Derby performance. I had Carl Nafsker with me on radio on Thursday, Rich, and Nafsker, about as good a judge of horseflesh as you're going to see. He says he's thriving, and California Chrome. Nafsker's thriving too. We'll look forward. We'll look forward to Baltimore. Before we wrap up, Rich, I know you got a meeting coming up, but give us your impressions and your feeling with the news announced yesterday that Tom Durkin's unparalleled career behind the microphone will come to an end August 31st.
Well, I think you said it best right there. Unparalleled. It's an amazing talent, a wordsmith. That we were so fortunate to have in our midst for so long, and mixed emotions. His calls paint a picture of the race that I'm certainly going to miss. As exciting as the race could be, he certainly lent more excitement to it. And think about anybody can go back and come up with their own top 10 list of his favorite calls. Just a brilliant race caller, terrific guy, and I'm just hopeful that we'll get to see him around, even though he won't be in the booth.
Absolutely. Have you ever remember a race where you could hear, I know you've mentioned this recently, where you could hear the race call in the background and hear his voice?
Oh yeah, there were a few. I think actually one I was a little upset with him when he said checked and checked hard. No, but I'm kidding actually. But no, I just mean some of the races that one of that stands out towards the very end of my career. My last Grade 1 winner, when I rode Flashing in the Gazelle, and it was one of those kind of front running rides that had kind of gotten some notoriety for in my career. Bounced him out, backed the pace down, kind of seized the race at some point. And when she won, he said, under a brilliant front-running ride by Richard Migliore, and I thought it was fitting that was my last Grade 1, and he kind of, gave me that big compliment.
Absolutely. Well, Rich, looking forward to watching you later this afternoon. Happy Mother's Day to Carmela, and we will see you next week in Baltimore.
Thank you, and happy day to Mother's Day to Tina as well. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Rich. Rich Migliore, everybody. Couple of things here, and I think we've got time really to go out with one more Durkin audio and visual, and it's about as great a race as may have ever been run at Saratoga, and certainly glad that you can enjoy here as we wrap up Loose on the Lead for this Mother's Day Sunday. I want you to relish Rachel Alexandra in the Woodward, going back, of course, just now, 5 years, hard to believe, but here it is. Thanks very much, everybody. Talk to you from Baltimore, hopefully with a healthy Seth Merrow. Tom Durkin taking us out.
They're in the gate. And they're off. Past the point on the outside, to tear it down toward the rail. Rachel Alexandra is right up there with them. And Cool Coleman on the outside. So they race into the first turn here. Rachel Alexander will duel with Daterra. On the far outside, past the point is right there. And in behind, Cool Coleman. A break of 3. Back to It's a Bird, another 3. Back to Bulls Bay, who's on hold early on here. Asiatic Boy, and another 7 to Macho again, who trails the field. Oh, the first quarter was 22 4/5 seconds. There'll be no free ride for Rachel Alexandra. They're making her work for every step today. Daterra has sent her through a punishing opening quarter mile. Past the point on the outside, runs along in 3rd. In behind them, Cool Coleman is 4th. It's a Bird 5th on the outside in Bulls Bay. 46 2 was the half mile. Calvin Burrell was able to slow that pace down just a little bit, but they move into the far turn. There's a half mile to go. Rachel Alexandra still holding that lead. Past the point, trying to get to her. The lead is now a length. On the inside, it is Cool Coleman running in 3rd. It's a Bird is 4th. Asiatic Boy is launching a bit from the back of the pack, and Macho again is firing too. They're coming to the top of the stretch. It is still the filly in front. A dramatic stretch drive awaits in the Woodward Stakes. On the outside, here's Bulls Bay, and Calvin Burrell imploring his filly for more. And Rachel Alexandra holds on to the lead. Bulls Bay is 2nd. Macho again is making a tremendous run for the back of the pack. Rachel Alexandra, Macho again. They're coming down to the finish. It's going to be desperately close. Here's the wire. Rachel won. She is indeed Rachel Alexandra the Great, beating Macho again here. And farther back, Bulls Bay was 3rd. The time was 1:48.1. Rachel Alexandra raises the rafters here at the Spa.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off-Track Betting.